Hello, welcome to ScriptWave. In today's lecture, we'll be understanding the output function. We'll see the functionality, we'll see the syntax, we'll see what all parameters we can add and how they are useful for our coding. Without any further ado, let's see the agenda for today's lecture. So here we have a simple agenda. So first we'll understand what is the output function. We'll see the terminologies or terms in the output function. Then we'll understand the code execution of the output function. So let's start with understanding the output function. So here we have the output function definition. The print function, so print is also called as output function. More precisely, you can call it as print function in a more technical terms. The print function prints the specified message to the screen or another standard output device. So here most of the cases, 90% cases or 99% cases, the output device will always be the screen. Whereas in some cases, if you want to save the output to a different file, then you can definitely do it using the file. We'll discuss about it in the next slide. The message can be a string or other object. The object will be converted to a string before written to the screen. So always remember, every object, it can be an integer. Integer is minus infinity to infinity, any number, including 0, or maybe a floating point. Floating point is decimal, 10.3, etc. will be converted into the string before it's returned to the screen. So we need to make sure or understand everything will be converted to string before we send it to the screen, that is the output. Okay. Now we have the syntax here. We'll start with the keyword print. We'll understand about the terminology keyword in the next lecture. Then we have the objects. We'll see how we can define the objects and how we can add. Then we have the separator. Then we have the end. Then we have the file system and flush. Now you can ask me, in the previous lecture, we have just written a code that says print hello world. Where are the other items, and if you don't have it, will it work? Definitely, these are optional, provided if you don't add anything, they have a default mechanism or default value that is added. So this is the default value added, the separator as space, the end as new line. This is called as slash in. Slash n stands for new line. We'll understand it once we start writing the code better. And then we have the output. This I never used it, to be honest, but we'll discuss, we'll understand. Flush is something we'll clear out. So let's see everything in action. So let's try to check the code and then we'll write the code and we can do the variations as well. So we have the output function here. So we got the syntax, and let's try to understand one by one in detail, and let's try to write the code parallelly as well. So for each slide, we'll write the code one by one. First, the objects, very simple. We have hello and we are adding the objects. Then we have the separator. So if we don't add anything, by default, it will be a space. Now we have added a separator, it will change. And then we have the end. By default, the end will be new line. If we add anything else, the end will be updated. Now let's try to write it. So I'm just closing this one. I'll save it and close it because I want to keep everything organized. So I am creating a new file and I'm saving it with a name as Python training 4. Let's keep it as 4 only, or yeah, that's okay. Let's keep it as 4. Now let's try to print. Very simple. We know hello world. This is a simple object. Everything is an object. Just bear with me in the word object. Everything is an object. 10 is an object. 10.6 is an object. And then maybe we can add one more string. Let's take Python. So we have 4 different objects. One is the hello world. Second one is 10. Third one is 10.6. Fourth one is Python. So I'm just saving it and clicking on run module. So you can see we got spaces in between. Now let's try to change it. So you can change it by adding a parameter. SCP stands for separator. And here I am adding the separator to be a piping symbol. Let's see if it works. Yeah, you can see the space is updated to double piping symbols. So this is how you can add the separator. So I'll add a comment separator. And now let's try to understand the end. So print. Before understanding the end, let's add, I'll comment this one as well because this should stay in this file. You can uncomment and you can practice because I'll be sharing this file as well, the source code. Now I am printing 10. You can add a string or you can add it as a number. It won't matter. 30. I am adding one more. Let's take Python for simplicity. Save it and execute it. You can use a shortcut as well, F5, based on your comfort. You're getting everything one by one because by default, the end is /n, that is new line. Now we are updating the end. So after the line completes or the execution complete, it will move to the next line. Whereas here in the end, we are adding, let's say, 4 hyphens. So I'll add the same at the bottom as well. Let's see if we can execute this one. So you can see everything got updated. You have 10, 4 hyphens and 30. And immediately after that, you don't have anything, but you are getting a default of new line. So let's add the same. I'm adding the end here. Save it and run it. So here you got everything. So this is how we can write the end. And now let's move to the next slide. That is writing things to a file. Now I will be writing a file. So let's try to write the code as well for file. So we will be understanding file handling in the later part, but just to understand how the file works, we are trying to do everything here. Okay. Now I am moving ahead and I'll be adding a multi-line comment. So I can add multi-line comment using triple quotes because I want you to reuse it. I'll add a hash and I make it as end. And you can add a triple quote. So whichever is inside triple quote should be uncommented and used. So that is for your reference. So uncommented and used later. Now let's try to handle the file. So file. So you can just say f is equal to open output.txt. You'll be handling a lot of text files later. And I am opening it as W. W stands for write. You need not to worry much about it right now. So print hello world. To syntax is file and F. So file, the file is the F. So I'm adding it as F. And now I'm closing it using close. So I can use F dot close, save it and run it. You don't have anything here. Whereas whenever you open the folder, desktop training, you can see a new output folder created. Double click and open, you can see the hello world is printed to the output.txt file. So this is how we can use it. So I haven't used it in my life as a use case, but it's always good to know the features because that will be useful in your interviews. And then we have the flush where this forcefully flushes the values. So here you have the import. You can definitely try it out. I'm not doing it because it's not fully necessary. So I'm just ignoring it for now, but you can definitely try. I have added the code for your reference. So that's it for the lecture. In the next lecture, we'll be discussing about the variables, very important concept. So thank you so much. Have a great day. See you in the next lecture.